All right, welcome everyone. For everyone who's joining right now, we're going to give it just a couple of seconds and then we will kick it off. Okay, looks like we've got a good number of people on here, so I think we can go ahead and kick it off. Welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is you're joining us from. We're really happy to have you for our next installment of the Damagi eLearning webinar series. Today we're going to be talking about data cleaning and management in CommCare. So without further ado, let's get into it. Quickly, we just want to introduce Erin Quinn. I'll bet most of you are actually pretty familiar with Erin by now, but she's our Senior Customer Success Manager here at Damagi, and she's responsible for onboardings and generally making sure that CommCare users are ready to rock and roll with our platform. And she's going to be leading our discussion today. And that's me on the right there, Marshall Daly. I'm the Director of User Engagement here at Damagi, and I'm going to be facilitating the discussion and running the Q&A. All right, cool. Thanks, Aaron. And quickly, I want to review our agenda for today. So first, we're going to look at all of the data cleaning tools that are available in CommCare. We'll give you an overview and show you what those look like. And then next, we are going to actually run through a couple scenarios where you might need to use those data tools. And so we'll talk a little bit about what the problems are and how you can solve them. And actually, Erin will go ahead and show you those in CommCare itself. So that should be pretty cool. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about data pipelines, how CommCare fits into them, and some best practices that we've learned working with customers and their data pipelines over the past couple of years. And at the end, we will save a couple minutes for question and answer. So definitely submit your questions as we go. At the bottom of the Zoom window, there on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a button that says Q&A. And so just click that and a Q&A box will pop out, and put your questions in there at any time during the webinar. I'm going to be monitoring that chat, and I'll either answer them right there, or we'll save them for the end and Erin can talk through them. Pretty excited for today, and let's kick off the discussion. Erin, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Marshall. And like Marshall said, it's great to see so many of you here. I'm sure you're getting really used to spending your Tuesday morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time this is, with all of us, and we're glad that so many of you are able to join us. One of the reasons that we wanted to start this e-learning series is we know that people are at a pretty unique time. I mean, obviously, you know, none of us have really lived through a global pandemic like this before. So many of us are on lockdown right now, and many of our projects on the ground activities have stopped. And so, you know, on the one hand, obviously, that's very frustrating. A lot of your programming is really essential to people's lives, but trying to find a silver lining in that, I think we really do have a unique opportunity right now to fix some of our data without interfering with live workflows. For any of you that have projects that are currently, you know, live or were live and have rolled out, you know that it's so difficult to be doing data cleaning while data collection is actively happening. You know that you normally have to wait until data collection is done for the day, do a quick upload at night, and hope that it takes by the morning. So we do actually have a really unique opportunity where we could, you know, work with data for a few days without worrying that we're interrupting live workflows. And similarly, like I said, so many of us that just don't have time in our day-to-day lives to really dig into data cleaning are now stuck in our houses, or, you know, with much reduced responsibilities in terms of on the ground sort of work. And so we actually have, again, some more time and capacity to spend on data cleaning. And because of that, you know, we wanted to do this now, and hopefully, you know, if any of you are finding yourselves in a place where you're not able to do a lot of the normal things you typically do with your job, we're hoping that you could take on some data cleaning and use this very unprecedented time as maybe a way to get your project looking in even better shape, so that when we do reopen, you've got this great data set that is just really good to go. So I'm going to start today by walking through some of the data cleaning tools that we have. There are lots of ways to clean data in CommCare, and I would bet that almost every project will at some point in time use every single tool. So it's not, there's no objectively best tool. I'm not going to sit here and say the Excel case importer is the way to do it. That's not always the appropriate tool. So I just want to walk through kind of what the options are for you guys when you would use each one and how you can evaluate that for yourselves. So first we have the clean form data tool. This is when you're in a form submission in HQ and you can clean the form data. It allows you to edit an individual piece of form data. And obviously it's a CommCare HQ web user that does this on CommCare HQ on the web. Then you have clean case data. It's exactly the same as cleaning form data, except you're cleaning a piece of case data. So you're cleaning a case property instead of a form property. And then next you have bulk cleaning case data via Excel import. And so this allows you to edit multiple pieces of case data that has been saved in HQ. And you can edit multiple pieces for one case at a time and multiple cases at a time as well. That's also only available on the web. And then this last option is sending case data for cleaning by a mobile worker. So, sometimes we can look at a piece of data and we can say, wow, that person is marked as pregnant and also a man. That's clearly not true. So, we on our end, could go in and fix the sex of that person case. Sometimes it might be something where we can flag, this doesn't look right, but we don't know what the correct piece of information is. And so we can send that back to the mobile worker and make them recollect that data with the correct information. And so in that workflow, we have this triggered by CommCare HQ, someone that is triggering this on the web, but then they are sending it to the mobile to actually get cleaned by mobile workers. So I just want to go in a little bit more and talk about each one of these methods. And at the end, I'm going to talk about when it's most appropriate, kind of what are the deciding factors of which method you should use. So for cleaning form data, basically what happens is a web user goes into a form submission in CommCare HQ. That's where you can see every single question that the user entered and all the answers that they entered, along with any hidden values. And you click on a button, it'll bring up all of the entries that you have, and you can literally just type in the correct answer. This only updates the form data, not any associated calculations or hidden values or case properties. So that is a very big caveat. If this is a question that feeds into some sort of hidden value, if it's a question that's saved as a case property, if it's a question that gets calculated and then, if it's date of birth and then, you're calculating age in a separate hidden value, you need to update all of those things separately. So that's just something to keep in mind. We have an example situation like this where I'm going to show you what it looks like, but it does take a very high degree of familiarity with the application to make sure that when you're cleaning form data, you're cleaning all the right parts to make sure that you're not only cleaning the question that they put in wrong, but also any associated hidden values or case properties. And very importantly, you do this one form at a time, one form submission at a time. So, you can go and pull up one form submission. You can clean as many pieces one by one as you want in that, but there is no way currently in CommCare to bulk edit form data. So that's just one limitation I really want you guys to keep in mind. I get this question a lot. There is no way to bulk edit form data. There is a way to bulk edit case data, but not form data. So if it's something that's wrong in the form, you're going to need to go through one by one and clean these using the clean form data tool. Next, we have cleaning case data. Again, it's really similar to the cleaning form data. Instead of being in a form submission, you're now in the case file on HQ. And when you're in there, you click on the clean case button. You get all of your case properties there, and you can fill in, you can delete, you can edit, you can fill in any properties that you want. Similar to the form data, this only is going to update the case data, not any associated calculations, hidden values, or form properties. So say that I had a question in that example where I had that you had a pregnant man, and you're like, okay, I need to go in and switch the sex from male until female. If I switch that in the case data, it's not going to affect any associated calculations or hidden values. It's also not going to go back and change it in the form. So when you are editing something, you are only editing that specific property. And again, it takes your own familiarity with how your app works and how your data works to understand the other implications of that property and where else you need to change it. Like I said, it doesn't go back retroactively and update any form data. And again, it's done one case property for one case at a time. There is a way to bulk edit and clean case data, but this is not it. So these two, the cleaning form and cleaning case data, the individual ones, these are really great for situations where, maybe a supervisor calls in and they say, I created this household today and they just, I marked this question wrong. Can you go and fix it? It's really great to kind of get these one-off little things cleaned in the form and the case data. You also, like I said, it doesn't, when you clean case data or form data, it doesn't affect the other type, but you yourself can go in, if I have a piece of form data I need to edit and I know that it gets saved to a case property, I can easily edit both of those. So it's certainly possible to fix both your form and your case data. It's just going to be two processes that you're going to want to run. And next we have bulk case update via Excel. So for anyone who has ever used the Excel case importer, this is just another way that you can use to clean your data. Some of you might have used this tool in the very beginning of your CommCare journey when you uploaded cases to register them. That's one of the times that we use Excel to import cases. But you can also update cases. And so basically what you would do is you would take a big bulk download of all your cases, making sure that all the fields you wanted to edit were in there. You clean whatever data you need to. You can add data, you can add new properties, you can edit existing data that's there. And then you upload that file back to HQ using the interface that import cases from Excel interface. Again, any data, any case data that you're editing does not retroactively go back and fill in form data, so you're going to have that same issue. It's also, of course, done in bulk. It can be done, bulk is in the eye of the beholder. It could be 5 cases, it could be 5,000 cases. And you can also use this to both reassign cases to different owners or reassign, if you have child cases, you can use it to associate it with a different parent case. And you can use this to close cases. So a lot of times it'll happen is every quarter or every year, maybe a project is having huge performance issues on their application and they realize they're, out of 10,000 cases, 5,000 of them haven't even been serviced in the last year. So we can do a big download of all those cases, find the inactive ones, and close them via bulk import to clear those out of the system. Really importantly, when you're doing a bulk case upload, you only have to include the fields that you're trying to change in that upload. So if I have 10,000 cases and I'm only editing 2,000 of them, I only need those 2,000 cases in my Excel file. And if I'm only editing the name field and the date of birth field, I only need those 2 columns. It's not that I need to take this entire expansive data set and upload the whole thing. And it will, the difference between uploading 2 properties or 5 properties for the same amount of people, it's going to take, 2.5 times as long. So you definitely want to only update the cases and the data that you need to update. Everything else can stay out. It's not like, sometimes I've heard this, this worry that if you only had 2 fields in your case upload, that all the other fields associated with those cases would be deleted. That's not how this works. So please just update what you need to update for who you need to update and nothing else. And that'll keep it as streamlined and as quick for you as possible. And then lastly, we have this send for mobile cleaning. So this is not something I see being used very much, but I think there are a few projects that I've seen that have done this very well. So if you guys are familiar with what we call an edit form, this is basically a form within a mobile application that can edit questions or properties that have already been collected. So a really classic example of this is in a registration form, we might ask your address, your phone number, your name, your date of birth, things like that. And we'll also add an edit form that asks all those same questions. And the use case for this very commonly is if a mobile worker perhaps makes a typo when they are entering in the name, or if they accidentally put the wrong date of birth, they can immediately go into the edit form and fix that themselves. So that's typically how we use edit forms. But you can also use it in this way where you can create an edit form that actually gets triggered by someone on the web. So in this situation, say that I'm a web user and Marshall is a frontline worker. So Marshall's been collecting data. I, as the web user, pulled out an export and I flag a couple pieces of data that I think look very strange. For instance, maybe I see a couple phone numbers that are like the wrong number of digits or maybe the wrong area code. I can do a case upload. I can either clean the case data or I can do a case upload to basically trigger a flag that will send these back to Marshall into a separate module that is called like needs follow-up. He can open these up and he'll be able to see all the cases that I've flagged for him to go and recollect data on. And then of course what he does is he recollects the data and then we clean that. So it's obviously a much more involved process than some of these other ones. It takes a lot of coordination between me as the web user and Marshall as the frontline worker. It's not particularly quick. It might take me a long time to identify the data. It might take Marshall a long time to actually go and recollect that data. But often I will see people who are at this kind of program administration level who don't, they can say this data really doesn't look right to me, but they have no idea, like if you think a phone number is wrong, how are you ever going to get the correct phone number? There's almost no way that someone at the head office is going to be able to collect that data. So thinking about sending these things back to the mobile workers is definitely something that I've seen projects employ very, very successfully if they can create a good workflow around it. Again, this is only going to be working for case data because the reason that this actually does work with those edit forms is that we are overwriting the existing case properties. So again, this would not work for form data, only for case data. So when you're thinking about choosing a data cleaning method, then given all those 4 ways that I just talked about, here are the different considerations that you're going to want to think about. So the first one is, are you using form or case data? Which one are you trying to clean? If it's form data, you really only have one option, and it's that clean form data tool. Now, if you're using case data, that's when you start to have a bunch of other options. So that's the very first thing that you need to think about. Similarly, I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the data pipeline planning, but this is a really great reason to use case data because there are so many different ways that you can clean it, whereas there's only one for form data. So that should also maybe make you think and inform your data pipeline a little bit, thinking about the fact that if you're using case data, you do have a lot more opportunities to edit it in different ways. Secondly, think about the scale of changes. Are you going to want to do this one by one, or would you want to do this in bulk? I think a lot of times people think they only want bulk edits, but there are a lot of times that I see that this one by one kind of incremental changes are really useful. So, data cleaning is best done as and when we know that there is an error. So I've seen really successful workflows where, a frontline worker makes a mistake, they tell their supervisor will once a week or once a day call into the head office and tell any mistakes that need to be changed. That sort of incremental, very like piecemeal changes coming in consistently, that's actually not a bad way to do this. It keeps the amount of changes low. It means every day you're only doing maybe 1 or 2 changes. It means the changes are happening quicker. And of course, then you can use like the clean form or the clean case data tools, which just mean you don't have to be formatting things in Excel or anything like that. So again, think about if you're editing 1,000 properties, that's probably not something you want to do in a single, one by one. You probably want to do that in bulk. But think about that, and I think about that not just the next time you get a request, but think about the sort of workflows that you want in your project. Is it something where maybe once a year you do a big bulk data cleaning of all your case properties, but as you go, you also will take suggestions from people in the field. It's not that you have to use just one or the other. Next, who's going to correct the data, the web user or the mobile user? And again, this is what I was talking about before. Sometimes as a web user, you can correct the data. Maybe it's a typo. Maybe it's something, like I said, if you saw a male who was pregnant, you would be able to know kind of what the right answer was. But there are a lot of pieces of data that you're not going to know. And so you need to think about who who has access to the source of truth about this piece of data, and who's the best person to fix it. And then lastly, we have basically just, is this an addition or is it a change? So is the change that you're about to make in a form or a case property, does it have other sort of downstream implications? And if it does, what are they? So the first situation I'm going to go in and actually show you guys is an example where it has some downstream implications. Like I said, it does require a lot of app familiarity from you. So this is something that I would say at the planning stages, you want to know if it's possible that I'm going to have data changes for this very complex workflow. How am I going to ensure that the person doing the data cleaning knows what all those changes are? We've seen organizations who create these kind of like cheat sheets of, if you change X case property, Y, Z, and A also need to change, and this is how they need to change. That's probably something that you're going to want to do if you find yourself needing to make a lot of different changes, or if you find that anyone besides your primary application builder is needing to make these data changes. This is something where having a bigger team actually maybe is a little bit more difficult. If you are someone that is just the solo CommCare hero at your organization and you do all the app building, all the data pipeline, the data cleaning, and the data analysis, this is going to be easier for you because you will have that application knowledge. If you're a larger M&E team that has many people working on this, you're definitely going to need to standardize some of these processes around data cleaning and changing data. So with that, I did really want to spend a lot of our time on examples of how to do this data cleaning and kind of these troubleshooting situations. So for those of you that haven't worked with me outside of webinars, one of the big things I do in my day-to-day here at Damagi is working with our SaaS customers who are independently building and implementing their own CommCare applications. And so in these 4 situations, I really tried to draw on the situations and the sorts of things, the sorts of situations that I've seen a lot of our users get stuck in over the course of my few years working with them. So these are all example situations. We've built a demo app and we have this demo data set that I'll be working off. I have pre-downloaded a lot of the exports just because sometimes exports take a long time, but I will walk you guys through these situations, show you guys how I would fix this data, and hopefully this will give you some ideas about how to do your own sort of data cleaning activities. So our first situation is a supervisor calls to tell you that they've made a mistake in a follow-up form for household number 121. They give you the correct data. So there's a question about whether or not you have clean water, and the answer should actually be yes. And so they're asking you to fix this in the system. So what do? Well, first let's think about the request of this change. They're saying that they made one mistake in one form for one case. All right. So already we shouldn't be thinking bulk, right? This is a one-off thing that one person did. So this feels like a really good use case for me to use the clean form or the clean case data tools. And they told me that it's household 121. In this application, just so you guys know that you're not confused, the name is actually the household number. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in and I'm going to investigate. I want to find the form submission that was submitted for household 121 where they made this mistake. I want to correct it there. And I'm also going to correct it in the case data. Now, if you knew that only form data or only case data was relevant for this project, you could choose to only correct it in whatever data source you will be using. But for me to be safe and to show you guys, I'm going to correct it in both places. So I'm going to hop us out of our presentation and into CommCare. This is the application that we're working with. This is the household follow-up form where the mistake was made. If it's helpful, I mean, sometimes it is really helpful, especially if you're not familiar with the app, to have the app open as you're looking at this. You can certainly go in and look at things like hidden values and calculations and things like that. But then to find this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my reports. And I'm going to go into the submit history. So I'm going to pull the submit history, and I want to only show that household follow-up form. that I know the mistake is in. So I'm just filtering by my application, the menu, and the form. And I'll just do it in the last 7 days. And we'll see here. So in this situation, we've got the same test user that's been doing all of these. So this is not super helpful for me if I look at how many follow-ups were done. This will happen sometimes where it's not very easy to pinpoint kind of the submit history based on one user. So another thing I could do, I mean, I certainly could click through all 9 of those, but that doesn't seem like a great idea to me right now. So I could also search my case list by the household name, which again is 121. So I'm going to filter by my case type, which is household, and do 121. And sure enough, here we go, we have the case. So, and the reason I looked at both of these are both totally legitimate and fine ways to come to the piece of data that you're looking at. Obviously, this is going to give you a form that's been submitted. This is going to give you a case. From either one of those, from the form submission, you can get yourself to the case. From the case file, you can get yourself to the form. Just think about what makes the most sense for you. If this test user had really only filled out one follow-up form that day, it would have been very easy for me to find the form submission. As this data came in, it was not easy for me to find that out. So just use those 2 reports flexibly. Understand that you can get to either one from either one. So I'm going to click here on household 121, and this is going to open up their case file. These are all the case properties that are saved about this particular case. So you can see its name, clean water, all of these things. So I am actually going to want to come back and clean this case data, but for consistency's sake for me, first I'm going to clean the form data. So if I come here to case history, you can see these are the 2 forms that have been filled out about this particular case. So this was its registration form and this was the follow-up. The piece of data that we're looking at is in the follow-up form. So I'm going to click on that, and you can, from here you can clean the form submission. I find this viewing this a little bit tough, so I always like to go here and click on view standalone form. This is just, I think, a little bit easier, at least for my eyes, to look at. So you can see here, this is everything that the user was asked and everything that they responded. So we're asking, in this form, we're basically asking 5 questions, and we're trying to generate a risk score. And so we're asking if you have a staple food, if anyone is sick, if you have clean drinking water, if there's been an inspection recently, and if you have medical insurance. And based on that, you can see down here, all of these hidden values will change. So for anything that's riskier, so if you don't have clean water, we give you 1 point, and then we sum it up here in your risk score. So this is its total risk score is 5. And then this risk score is out of 5 points. So for anyone who has 4 points or higher, we consider them high risk. So that's basically what this household follow-up form is doing. It's important to know that because, as you can see, our question here that we're trying to edit, do you have access to clean drinking water, does feed into all 3 of these things, into the water risk score, the total risk score, and high risk, okay? So these things are really important to know. Again, as the app builder, I know that, but this is something, if you have a different data analysis team than the team that built this app, this is something you're going to need to tell them. Otherwise, if I was just on the data cleaning team, I would come in here, I'd edit the 1 question, and I'd be done with it. So just, again, really hitting home that you need to be very familiar with the app. And if the person doing the data cleaning is not familiar with the app, you as the app builder need to help them get to that point of familiarity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this tiny little shower icon and click to clean the form submission. Here you can see I've got all of my questions here. For anything that was a multiple choice question, it's going to give me a drop down here with all of the potential answer options. Then all of my hidden values are coming here, and then my high risk there. So we said that they do have access to clean water. So I'm going to flip this over to yes. You can see I've changed it. It comes with this green check. Then here on clean water risk, instead of a 1, it's now going to be a 0 because I don't want to give them an extra point for that. You know, they are not at risk for clean water. So I'm going to put that to 0. Again, I've got my green check to show I've changed that. Then for the total risk score, I now want to take away a point from that as well, right? Because this risk score is basically just adding up all of those. So this is now going to be 4 instead of 5. Again, I've got my green check, I've changed that. And lastly, we have this high risk. Now, again, like I told you, you're high risk if you are 4 or greater. And so our risk score is still 4. So we actually are still high risk, even though we've made this change. So this does not actually need to be edited. Now, this might not have looked so hard, right? Because we only had 5 questions and 5 hidden values and 1 final score. When you have 100 form properties in your form, this is going to get more difficult. And when you can't see everything cleanly on this one screen, this is also going to get more difficult. So this is why I was talking about it's really important if you are going to have data cleaning like this, where there are multiple things affected, you're going to want to have some sort of a guide. Even if you are the primary app builder, you know, it's always good to have a guide that you can walk through and just double check that you've changed absolutely everything that gets affected by this. So I'm going to press save here. And you can see now that the form submission itself has been edited. So now, yes, we have access to clean drinking water. We have 0 points on that clean water risk. The high risk is still yes, but the risk score itself has gone down to 4. So all of our form data has now been cleaned. That's fantastic. The last thing I want to do on this example now is go back and actually clean the case data as well. So if I come back here, first I'm going to refresh this because I want to show you guys how form data, I want to show you guys just kind of the latest and greatest here. So, you know, obviously we cleaned everything that was here in this form. If you look here, where is it? Clean water risk is still written as a score of 1 and clean water is no, and risk score is 5. So I refresh that just to show you, even now that the form looks beautiful, it's exactly accurate, the case data has not been affected. So similarly here, I'm going to click on the little clean case data button, and I'm going to switch this over. Now, since this is no longer a form, this is a case property, I'm actually going to have to type this in. So that's something to be cognizant of. And also remember, yes, with a lowercase is not the same as yes, is not the same as yes. So you need to be very, very careful about writing in your choice values here. Then again, we want to go from 0 to 1 for the water risk, and then the overall risk goes from 5 to 4. Again, we're still high risk, so we don't have to change the overall risk score. You know, we still, or sorry, the high risk value. So I'm going to save that data as well. And now you can see I've properly cleaned all of the form and all of the case data. So hopefully, you know, a lot of form properties don't lead into, you know, 4 or 5 different case properties and different calculations. But in case yours do, this is the sort of action that you're going to need to take when you clean this data. So that was our first situation. Like we said, the solution to this first situation was cleaning the form and cleaning the case data. Again, I cleaned both because I really like having both sources of them showing the truth. But if you know you're only going to use form data or only case data, you can selectively only clean one of those. That's fine too. So let's pop into our second situation now. You download your data, but for some reason, and you don't understand why, the head of household name is blank for some of your cases. Why and how can you fix this? And the reason that this is especially puzzling to you is because you know that in your registration form, the head of household name is a required question. So you're very confused as to how these cases could be coming through with no data in them, knowing that this is a required field. So the first thing that you would do is you would take a form export for this. So I've actually done that already. So this is I would take, this is my case export. So this is where I was kind of cleaning my data, right? And I would look in here, and I've taken this already, and I've highlighted the places that I'm finding disconcerting. I'm saying I have these 4 households, and all of them are missing head of household name, and I really don't understand why, especially because I can see that other pieces of information like their address and their name are filled in. It looks like a lot of these don't have their follow-up form filled, and that's okay. But if they've had their registration form filled, which they clearly have because they are a case, these should be filled in. So this is kind of where I'm saying, like, I don't really understand what's going on with this. This is an interesting borderline case too, because I have 4 pieces of data that aren't right. 4, I think, sits in this, 4 or 10 maybe sits in this gray area of maybe I want to clean these one by one, maybe I want to clean them in bulk. It might be kind of your own preference, what you think you'd prefer to do. So just keep that in mind that, we could be looking at single or bulk edit. But the first thing that I want to do is just understand what's happening with these. So I'm going to try to look for patterns in them. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the case link here and just look at what sort of forms have been filled out. I think these people have only been registered. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. So if I come here to the case history, yeah, so they were registered. Like I said, they didn't have a follow-up form, but they did have this edit form filled out. So, that's kind of interesting to me. Maybe that's, something to look at. So that's case history for one of them. Let's go and look at the case history for this person. I'm going to pull up this second case that's also missing that same piece of data. Okay, this is interesting. Again, we still see that this edit form has been filled out as well. So that's kind of interesting to me. I'm starting to sense that maybe there's a pattern there. Both of these have had their edit forms filled out. Let's look at this third one and see. Oh, the case history here. Yeah, and this one has their edit form filled out too. All right, so this is 3 people that have shown the same pattern, right? They've been registered and then they've had an edit form filled out. So now I'm kind of thinking this looks like maybe it's something to do with the edit form. So I'm going to pop myself into the app and go into the edit form and just see if there's anything in there that looks a little fishy to me. Now, this is what I was talking about before, these edit forms, where you can, using case properties, you can recall questions that have already been entered at registration, and you can get mobile workers to edit those pieces of information so that they can fix any mistakes they've made. One of the main ways that you set this up is that you put default values in for all of your questions. This is so that when I come in and I see this form, automatically all the information populates, and then I only have to edit whatever is incorrect. Everything else will stay the same. I can submit it. All the case properties stay the same and great. So if you see here, like in household number, we have the default value of the case property household number. What this means is when I go in, I'm going to see the household number already written in my line, and then I only need to fix it if it's something that's incorrect. So that's set up right. I see the same thing with the household address. I see the same thing with the phone number. Now I'm going to go to head of household name. And sure enough, here we go. There is no default value set here. Okay. So basically what's happening is people are coming into this form. Maybe I just needed to edit the address. So I edit the address. I don't put in anything for head of household name because that's not the field that I'm editing. And sure enough, then it gets saved as blank once you submit this form. So there's 2 things that we're going to need to do here. First, we want to fix this in the application so that going forward, it's going to be fixed. And then secondly, we need to go back and we need to fix all of that data. So the first thing I'm going to do here is look at this case property. This is the head of household name case property, and I'm going to drag and drop it into the default value and then save this. Now, head of household name, I believe, was already saved as a case property. It was just blank before. So let me just confirm that this is being saved as a case property. It is. That's great. So now I'm going to want to make a new version and publish this out and then tell all of my users to update. Typically, when you're looking at like the the chronology of this is actually pretty important. So I would actually want my users to update to this newest version first. I would confirm that everyone's on the new version, and then I would go do this data cleaning, only because on the off chance, say I did the data cleaning right now, all of my users continue to collect data on the old version today, and then tomorrow they updated, there's a chance that someone still fills out an edit form today, you know, after I've done the data cleaning, but before they've updated the application. And then I'm just gonna have to do this data cleaning again. So I typically like to push out a change first and then do my data cleaning once I'm certain that everyone is on the right version of the app. Otherwise, it might just mean that you're duplicating efforts. So I fix this in the application. Now I can come back to here. And again, this is where I have a choice. There are 4 of these. I really like the cleaning form and cleaning case data UI on CommCare. So I would probably just choose to edit these 4 individually. The other thing that you could do is you could basically take the form export, which I have here. This is the registration form. And you could do a VLOOKUP. And you would do a VLOOKUP on the case ID from that form submission into the case file to populate those 4. If you had 20 or 30, you would definitely want to do this VLOOKUP. You would not just want to do this one by one. My 4th example is going to show you guys how to do a VLOOKUP, so I'm not going to do that for you now. Right now, I'm just going to change one of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the case ID of this first case that is incorrect. I'm going to go into the form. I'm going to do a control find to find the case ID. It's this person in row 20. And so I can see that the correct name is Sahil. So I can open up the case link for this. And this is a great example. So there's almost no reason that you would ever take a form export of an edit form, because really all we're trying to change in that form is a piece of case data. So I actually don't feel like it's very important for me to go into that edit form and populate that. I'm never going to take a form export of that edit form data. So I'm just not going to mess with it. There's no need to do an extra step if I know I'm never going to use that form export. So again, the field that we are filling here is head of household name. So I'm going to go to the clean case data. And I need to find, oh, also if you have a lot of properties up here, you can start typing in and this will actually filter it out. So for this, we have head of household name and it's Sahil. So I'm going to save that. And just like that, now you can see that Sahil has been populated. So I could do that one by one for those 4 cases, or like I said, you could do this VLOOKUP in bulk. For the VLOOKUP, it's going to be the same process that I'll show you in the 4th situation, so I'm not going to demo it right now for this one. So that was a way that you can kind of basically, the solution to this issue is to do a little bit of investigation in CommCare HQ. And then, like I said, once you investigate, once you find the cause, make an app change, and then, you know, clean your data. So now moving on to our 3rd situation, you take a form export and you see that there are 2 columns with mobile numbers in them, and only half of the values are filled in each column. So what do? I see this all the time. I'm going to show this to you guys in a case export right now, but I see this all the time in a form export. So just so you guys know, if you ever change the name of a question ID, or you ever change the name of a case property, and when I say change the name, I mean change 1 letter, 1 underscore, 1 tiny part of it, that will create a new column in your exports. So say, for example, that someone typed in household number and they misspelled number and you collected a bunch of data, you should not correct that typo in the question ID, because that will give you 2 columns now. So this is just something to be really mindful of. It's a great reason why you should actually be really careful when you name your form and case properties to begin with. But this is what it looks like. So you can see here that I've got my household phone, and then someone renamed this property to be household phone number. So you can see here there's a really clear mapping between anyone who's got it blank here has a value here, and vice versa. So what you need to do is you need to make a decision about which one of these is the right name for it. So if I go into the application, I can see this is something that's collected in the household registration form. So I just want to see what the name of the case property is currently. And it is phone number. So maybe I can say, all right, I want phone number to be the name, the real name of that case property. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste all of these phone numbers from the old property into the new one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bulk upload these. So the only columns that I need for this are the case ID and the phone number. So I'm going to throw these into a new spreadsheet. I'm going to save this as case IDs, or sorry, phone numbers for upload. And then I'm just going to go through and do a really quick import. And to do that import, I would come here into the data tab and I would do this import cases from Excel. I'm cognizant of the time right now, and I do want to leave a little time for Q&A. So I'm going to go on to the next example because that also ends in a case import. So like I said, to finish this off, you would come in and you would do a case import to establish that property after you made the app change, but I'm going to wait and demo that on the very, very last example. So like I said, the answer to number 3 is basically that you do one app change, you make sure that that case property is looking good, and then you do some data cleaning via Excel upload. So lastly, and this is, I think, probably the number one thing that I see that happens wrong with data cleaning is you didn't save a case property or a question as a case property, and now you realize that you do want it available in your case exports. So in this situation, we didn't save the number of men and the number of women as case properties when you built the application. And now you need that, you decide that you need that in your case export. So what do? So this one is really interesting. Remember that you have collected this data, so it does live in your form export. It just doesn't live in your case export. So this is our household case file. You can see it's got a bunch of data in it. What it doesn't have is number of men and number of women. So I'm going to add that to our case file here. These are going to be the 2 columns that I'm about to populate. And I also just want to make sure, since this isn't a case property yet, that I make sure in the application itself that I'm adding those as case properties and making sure that those names are the same. So here in the household registration, I'll go to the case management page, and we have household men, household women. So actually I did name those case properties wrong. That is something that I'm going to go and edit. So it's just HH_men and HH_women. And now how do I grab this data? This isn't something I would want people to have to recollect because I do know that I have this data somewhere. It's also not something that I want to look up one by one like it was for the household names, because I do actually have a lot of these to do. This isn't something I'm interested in going through and editing for every single one of these. Well, what I can do is I can take this form export. This is a registration form export that I've already taken, and you can see that I have all this data about household women and men here. So what I'm going to be able to do, and I'm going to reformat this a little bit, I'm going to take my case ID here, I'm going to insert it right there. And so this is really the data that I can now use in a VLOOKUP and port into my case file. So again, the unique ID that you're going to want to use here is your case ID. It's always going to be globally unique. You know that it's never going to match incorrectly. The case ID is also here, so this is going to be our match field. So I'm going to go into formulas and choose VLOOKUP. I'm going to be looking up the case ID, so B2. My table array is going to be columns G through J. The column number, so remember this is the column number of the table array I did, so it's the 4th column. And we want to type in false because we want, we obviously only want exact matches to come through. So I'm going to press OK. You can see that that value fills in. And I just double click to fill in for the rest of my columns. So that's how we do number of men. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the women. I'm going to VLOOKUP based on the case ID in our table array here. It is the third column, and we only want unique values, so false. That evaluated fine. We double click on our little cursor there, and we bring down all of our values. So this is a really slick and easy way, if you know that you have this data already in a form export, to bring it into a case export. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to bring it into a new spreadsheet here, because again, I really only want to bring over the information that I need. So I don't need all those other columns, all the other things in the case export. I just need the number of men and women and the case ID. So I'm going to save this as household women men upload. And I'm going to walk us through just really quickly in the next 2 minutes how you would do this upload using the Excel case importer. So again, I come to our data tab. I click on import cases from Excel. I'm going to be prompted now to choose my file. So I'm going to choose that one that I just saved, which was household women and men upload. I click on next step. Here it's going to ask me for the case type. You need to set this correctly. So my case type is household. It's going to ask me here, basically CommCare is asking me, how do I know which cases you want me to upload? Well, I have an Excel column called case ID that's going to correspond to the case ID that's in the system. So this is set up correctly. Then it's going to ask if I want Excel to, or CommCare to create a new case if it can't find one. I don't want to create a new case. You tick this if you want to register cases. I don't want to do that. So if it doesn't recognize one of these cases, I don't want it to create anything new. I'm going to leave this unticked. You click to go to the next step. It's going to pull over the case properties we have. Here you can see that it, looking at my Excel, it was able to map this directly to a case property in the application. If it could not map, if it did not recognize one of my columns as a case property name, you would see that this is ticked and it would say, do you want me to create a new property? We don't. We want it to only correspond to the fields that we already have. And so now I'm just going to click confirm import. And now you'll see down on the status bar, this will go through. If you've got, thousands of cases, the status bar is obviously going to take a little bit of time to go through. All of a sudden we see that it's success. And here it says there are 28 rows were matched and updated. Here, and this is something I see almost no one doing, you can write a comment. Now you might think, oh, I'm never going to need to know what I did today, but that is not true. Your future self is going to forget what you've done today. So I'm going to write populated the household men and household women case properties for all registered cases. So now I've got this historical example of what I did. And also, if at any time in the future I need to see what I uploaded, I can always download this Excel file. So this is great for a few reasons. One, for you to see a historical kind of record of what's been imported. And two, if you're on a big team, maybe I did this import and someone else on my team kind of doesn't understand why some of these fields are now filled. They can always go and look at this import history as well. So I know that that was a little bit of just like a flash through these few things. I just want to take one last minute. I know I have left us very precious few moments for questions, but just go through some of the best practices, and it's all things that I've been saying this whole time. So first, think about your data requirements from day one, not after you start app building. Everyone wants to focus on app building and the questions you want in the app from day one. You need to be bringing your data reporting requirements to that very first meeting too, to make sure you're collecting the data that you need to report out on. Use in-app validation. When I was talking about a pregnant man being registered, this is actually something you should never allow to happen in your application. Use validation conditions. Make sure you don't have babies that are 20 years old or pregnant men. You can do all those validations in CommCare itself, and it saves you a bunch of hassle down the road. Test early, test often. As you are building your application, take form and case downloads. Look at what it looks like. Does it look like the values you expect? Are you seeing ones and zeros? Are you seeing yeses and nos? Is that how your data analyzer is going to want to see it? Make sure that you're just familiar with that as you app build. Consider using a data dictionary so that you know what all of your case properties correspond to or what all your form properties correspond to. Do not rename properties. I cannot emphasize this enough. Don't do it, even if there's a typo. Don't rename a question ID. Don't rename a case property. If you rename it, it will create a second column in your export, and it will be very, very arduous for you to fix that. Especially if it's a form property, there's almost no way you can fix it. And lastly, just get in the habit of regularly viewing your data. It's a really good habit for you to get into. The more you view your data, the more comfortable you're going to become with it, and the more you're going to understand the interplay between your application and the data. If you do need help with your data, our customer success team does run several packages. Please reach out to our sales team. They'd be happy to talk with you about any of these three. They can really be tailored to whatever your needs are. So now, I'm sorry I've gone so long, but Marshall, if you want to take us into Q&A, that would be great.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you, Erin. Are you hearing my voice okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so let's see here. We've got 3 minutes left. To everyone on the chat who I've been promising to answer your questions live, we might not get to everyone, but we'll try to follow up with you offline afterwards. Andre actually just asked a very interesting question about the data dictionary. He's saying, how do you generate a data dictionary that's readable to other people? So maybe just to elaborate, is that data dictionary something that everyone can see in your space?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone I think has a different concept of what they mean when they say data dictionary. So one thing you can do is you can always download your case summary from the app summary page, and you could take this into Excel and build out a data dictionary. A lot of times, I mean, you should, a data dictionary in my mind includes things that are very readable. So if you see house or like HH_men, you should say the number of total men in a household. So it's certainly something you could do with the by downloading the case summary. There is a feature in CommCare called the data dictionary. I believe it's hidden behind a feature flag. So if that's something that you want to be doing in CommCare itself, reach out to us. We can talk to you about how to get that set up. A lot of organizations I've seen actually have a requirement to have like a very pretty looking data dictionary. If that's what you want, that's probably something you're going to want to take into Excel and make a little more pretty.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Another question that we didn't get to cover really in this session was around the CommCare data export tool and also our APIs. And I know that's a big topic, but could you just talk for a second about, like, do people use those tools for bulk data, like exports, cleaning, imports?
Yeah, so I've seen our APIs used for, like primarily for exporting data out. So I haven't seen them used very much for data cleaning. I'd be happy for someone to pop in on the chat and tell me that they've been using them. But in general, I think of them as pretty one directional, just getting your data out of CommCare. So maybe it's the first step in their data cleaning that they get it out into CommCare into some other data analysis tool where they do start to do their cleaning. But in general, data is normally cleaned using the tools that I showed you guys.
Cool. Okay, this is real hard. We probably have like one question, time for one more question. Let's see here. Okay, so Egida, hopefully I'm saying that right, is asking an interesting question. If you're editing data that flows into automatically calculated hidden values, will those hidden values update when we do the data cleaning?
No, and that's what, like in my first situation, you saw how I changed that question, and then I had to go through and I had to change every hidden value that was associated with it. So you do need to be manually changing those. It won't automatically, run through all the things that your form did.
Cool. Let's squeeze in one more. So Rachel is asking maybe a similar question, actually. She says, does sending for mobile cleaning, that option, does that leave a record of the cleaning done on the cases in CommCare HQ?
Yeah, definitely. So how that's actually going to look on CommCare HQ is when you send it for cleaning, you're probably going to do like a case import to send a bunch of things for cleaning. So you'll see a system form for that. And then when that mobile worker actually does do the cleaning, you're gonna see the edit form that they filled out, and you'll see what they added in for that. So there should be a really good record of all those steps when you send it for mobile cleaning.
Cool. All right, so I think unfortunately we got to wrap it here for time. Everyone that had questions that we didn't get to, we will try to follow up with you after the webinar. And to everyone else, we will be sharing the recording of this session shortly, probably tomorrow, via email. So, so that'll be going out soon. And with that, Erin, thank you so much for leading us. This has been super insightful for me and hopefully for everyone else. And thanks all of the attendees for joining. We will have some e-learning webinars coming up in the future, so stay tuned and we hope to see you on those ones as well. And with that, we'll say adios.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.